there, this is What the Hell Is This? And this is Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Oh god. I mean, it's funny, last week I did Pompeii and The Acolyte. And I thought, okay, this is as low as it goes. And this film didn't quite go as low as those two, but it felt pretty close. It's like, usually in these things I'm hoping for something that's fun to tear apart a little bit and actually see this works, this doesn't work. But recently I've been going to things that have that's very little you can say works in them. This is definitely this kind of thing. So this film was based on a book by Seth Graham Smith, who'd done all these parody things of history, like adding genre to history or historical books. It was directed by Timur Bekmambetov and produced by Tim Burton, and it starred Benjamin Walker as Abraham Lincoln, and it's a mess. It's one of those ones. It's just a mess. The director had made the Night Watch and Day Watch were terrific, so I was looking forward to that, you know. But this one was just like, I don't think he understood what he was doing. Like, I don't think he understood. I think he just thought it was a fun thing. Abraham Lincoln being a vampire hunter was a fun idea that just came from a book. I think he realised when he was making this film, like, just how offensive it was to a lot of people. And the fact is, the film never understood it had to go with the fact that it would offend people. It was going too far. It really should have gone full into the offensiveness to work. Instead, it becomes this kind of boring middle ground where, for half the time, it's this vampire hunter story set in like pre-Civil War America, which would have been a fun movie if it wasn't Abraham Lincoln. You could have done there was a lot of atmosphere here that worked really nicely, that could have been used, and you could have built a narrative around that and done something interesting with it. But no, they had to tie it to Abraham Lincoln, his life. So he had to meet Mary Todd, he had to become president. And it just kills the film because it has to jump between historical events and suggest a vampire thing going below the surface, which makes everything instantly stupid. So there's this disjunction between the reality is like, you find yourself watching this stuff and thinking, I wish this was just a proper film without the vampires. And they actually wrote the film properly and actually made it about Lincoln on his way to the Civil War. Because, I mean, Spielberg did Lincoln around about the same time and with Down Day Lose, and it was pretty much about getting the information, getting the anti-slavery bill through, which was a terrific film. It really worked. Then you have this one, which makes everything cartoonish and silly, and it's all about vampires, and it's like, this is offensive to the actual, what was actually going on. And of course they make all the black characters be Lincoln's sidekicks and working with Lincoln, and which isn't really historically accurate. I mean, Lincoln stopped slavery, but it wasn't like he was like that far friendly with the various people in his community. I mean, he obviously thought that the slavery thing was absolutely appalling, but this makes him, his best friend was black, his prime focus is just this, and it's like, rather than a complicated thing, and it's substituting vampires for the oppressive, you know, southern states is just stupid because it takes away from the reality of what people did to other people during this time. And you can't help but keep remembering that because the film doesn't go full on outrageous. It just keeps on being, we'll try and do this thing that kind of happened, but we'll do it in a kind of genre way, and you just think this doesn't work. And then it does these vampire things that feel offensive in the context of what was actually going on in the country. It throws in vampires at Gettysburg, which should have been funny. Instead, it's just lame and silly, and just like this whole plot about Gettysburg getting this silver to the front line of Gettysburg so they can defeat the vampires, and it's like, if you did this with verve, it would have been fun. But if because you did it with kind of self seriousness, despite the stupidity, it just reminds you of how offensive the idea is. And if you're going to do an offensive idea, make it really offensive instead of being kind of half offensive, which always makes it worse. So the film's just that all the way through. Essentially, is you could have done a vampire movie without Lincoln, and it would have been fun. Or you could have done a Lincoln film without vampires, and write it properly, and that could have been fun, and enjoyable, and informative. Instead, you have them mashing up so that all the historical stuff is inaccurate. Like Lincoln's son didn't die as a child. And he wasn't bitten by a vampire, obviously. Like, it's just, I mean, in the Spielberg film, Lincoln's played by Gordon Joseph Levitt, who's not a child. And he's seen as a young man and everything else, and it's like, oh, I don't think they checked history at all in this one. You have actors having to age horribly, like go from like being young to old with horrible makeup. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Mary Todd, and it's kind of like Emily Browning in the Pompeii film, where it's a sense of a good actress having to say absolutely garbage lines and just having one eye on the paycheck. Just thinking, I'll get through this and get in a better film. I'll get out of this one. Help. Like, yeah, I mean, Jimmy Simpson is the one of Lincoln's pals who's always made to look a bit dodgy. Like, he's always going to betray him, he never does. And again, it's like, he's a sidekick, and it's like, this actor could carry this film quite easily and make it much more interesting than Lincoln than the guy playing him. But, yeah. Anthony Mackie is the black best friend, and it's just as cliche as it sounds. I mean, you see Anthony Mackie in other films, you see he's a charismatic guy who's got some range and can do good stuff. In this one, he's just this bland character throughout, and he looks bored to tears. Again, it's another one that's, did the check clear? Yeah, good. And the guy playing Abraham Lincoln isn't particularly interesting. I mean, it's Benjamin Walker, and he's a fairly bland Lincoln. I mean, Dominic Cooper plays his vampire friend who shows him how to kill the vampires, and he's much more fun and a much more energetic performance. Lincoln, he has to end up being Lincoln and being the guy who's noble, but he's for most of the film the actor's just stiff and just doesn't, you're not feeling anything from him. It's just like, is it a scene where I have to give a speech, or is it a scene where I have to kill a vampire? And there's no variation in tone either one. It's just like, I'm not interested in you. It's just, there's nothing here. And the whole film just jumps different parts of Lincoln's life, from being a young man to to working to be a lawyer, to being a politician, to being the president. And you have this vampire stuff going on in the background, which doesn't make sense. They find out who he is, a vampire hunter, early on, and they just don't do anything for like 20 years while he becomes a politician. And it's like, huh? You're all out to kill him, and then suddenly you don't do anything for years. It's like, the vampires are the most useless vampires ever. So they're just there to be a funny thing without any motivation, really. Rufus Sewell plays the lead vampire. And again, he's picking up a check. It's like, everybody in this film knows it's trash, and no one's allowed to really go over the top and do some gruesome, ridiculous stuff. Instead, it's just like fairly tame kills, suggestion of something worse going on, but never really go for it. There's no jokes. It's just this mismatch of like very boring scenes. It's just like, all the scenes are fairly tedious. It's really well shot, but really tedious. It's like, you're going through scenes throughout the film that are just typical exposition scenes that get you from one scene to the other, without much emotion and without much build. It's kind of the Acolyte in this way, but Vampire versus Acolyte, in the sense of, it's like, why am I watching this? Why is it jumping all over the place? Why am I so bored? Why are you either bored with your scenes or trying to kill lots of people in your scenes to make up for the fact that you can't write a decent character scene. Like, what's going on and why? Why does this happen? Why are all these actors getting wasted and know nothing parts? It's just that sense of, if you're going to go for it, be really offensive. Like, it was an offensive idea, but really go for it and make it funny as hell and make Lincoln just utterly grotesque and weird, rather than trying to be like, oh, he became president. There's like, the best way to do was actually have him being a map hunter as a young man and then just move on and he became president later on, rather than having this long story throughout his career. It just is like, it's just so lame. I mean, that's the thing, is like, I was hoping to make a fun video of this one, because it's like, well, this surely should be offensive enough to make it interesting, but it's lame. It's just like everything that happens is telegraphed well ahead. The way to get out of situations is just basically have him decapitate someone with an axe, or have a massive CGI scene where it's obviously actors in boxes jump from one box to the other, and there's nothing interesting happening. It's just bereft of interest. It's just that it's a film that has no right to be this dull. It's a film with such a tacky idea. It's like, how can you be this tasteless, and but without the going full on tasteless? I mean, a film I'd contrast it to is Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which came out, I think, a year or two later, which is not a great film, right? But it knew it was trash. It understood implicitly we're making trash. We're doing a fun thing. It's trash. We'll have the monster stuff. We'll make it ridiculous. You know, it wasn't particularly well received, but it's much more watchable than this one, because it understood you're doing a genre movie. It takes place over a few days. You have a villain to kill. That's it. And the actors know they're in a ridiculous film and they're hamming it up. It's not difficult. You're not going to get much respect if you do this kind of thing anyway, so you might as well just make it enjoyable for everybody. Not this, oh, we're trying to be full serious too. That's the thing that's most aggravating, because it really is insulting to what happened in the Civil War and all the various things that the slaves had to go through by bringing vampires into it. It just feels tactless and tasteless, and again, not tasteless enough to actually make it the idea funny. So yeah, this is a total disaster. I felt like I hope to never see it again. It's just like, I remember I saw it just after it came out thinking it was a bit boring, but rewatching it, it was like, this is insanely boring. This is just like, I don't know how you can make a film this boring from this subject. It's quite an achievement. It's just like, was anyone awake during this film? Was anybody even paying attention? So this is just horrible. This is just absolutely awful. So avoid this one. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you later. Bye.